Alright, hi everybody. Today is going to be the point of no return on the bagger. We're going to be cutting and folding the bags. After we do this, we're pretty much 100% destroying the resale value of the bike. So it's going to be a wheelie bagger after this. All the other stuff we'll be doing, suspension, powder coat, handlebars, you know, it's all a performance bagger at that point. Still sell it if you want. You can still not stun it and just have a nice bike. But today I'm going to show you guys how to chop and fold the bags. This will only work with the ABS or plastic bags. I think they started making those in 02. They should all be plastic after that. Pretty much any of the aftermarket bags you buy, like the Chinese special ones, they should all be plastic too. So this will work on those. Biggest advice is use a lot of tape because drill bits move, saws move, cut off wheels. The more tape you have, the better. Also, measure twice, cut once, because you can't add anything back after you cut it off. So if you're actually going to be doing wheelies, you're not just cutting your bags for looks, because I think they look better with the Rogue Light fairing too, and a lot of other people agree. You're going to want to cut them shorter than the bag rails. Unless you're running cruisy bags, they all come cut with the rails already done and you can't see them.
That's pretty nice.
But for people that just don't have the money to do that, and they're broke like me, they also don't want to deal with paint and all that other good stuff. Pop this off and show you what I'm talking about. This is the rail I'm talking about. You want your bag shorter than this. Easy way to figure that out. There's a cutout in the bottom right here. You're going to want to cut it on this inside part of it. Make sure that's straight all the way across. I'll get a straight edge to actually write it down, or actually make sure it's straight. Then you're going to want to go back in and measure each side, make sure they're pretty accurate. You want to measure from this outside corner to where you're cutting out. That'll be the same on both sides. This bag is straight across the back. Same thing, measure from here to where you have your line coming across from the bottom. Make sure that's straight and it's even on both sides. I'm going to go ahead and do that line now, and I'll come back and talk to you guys more about what we're going to do next. Alright, so where we measured is a little over 5 1/4 on each side from the corners where I'm going to cut it. See, I have 2 lines here because I had to do it twice. I X'd out the one I'm not going to be using. We're going to be cutting across this line here, just short of where the bag turns for the bag rails. Now, this is going to be personal preference. The higher you cut up, the little bit more leverage you'll have when you go to fold it down. And it's going to change the look of it depending which way you want to cut it. So you're going to have to go in and figure out what angle you want to cut at and what height. Usually I cut just below where this fold, where this body line is on the bag. It goes all the way back here off the back. Usually I'll go off that, have an angle like this, just slightly kicked in. Alright, so we got our cutoffs marked on both sides. Went back and measured it twice. Like I said, just to make sure everything's nice and even on both sides. This will be our cut marks here. Cut mark here. This dash part right here, we are not going to be cutting. This is where we're going to be folding it. It's basically just used as a reference point so I can make sure both sides are even. I also measure from the top of the bag lid to here, all the way across in 3 different spots to make sure that fold is going to be nice and straight and even from the back and not going to be different from one side and another, because it's pretty noticeable, because people are going to stare at the back of your bike when they realize your bags and your fenders are chopped off on them. The last thing you want is it to look that much trashier by things being way off. You don't want to just go ahead and hack this part right away. Oh, good, I just drew all over my tape. You don't want to just hack this part off, because then you have a big open bag, and that's what we used to do before. This is not something I came up with. There's a dude in Florida, I think his IG is Just Want to Ride, or I Just Want to Ride. He's the one that came up with this. Super, super great idea, looks super clean, on a budget at least. Versus what we used to do before, like me and Seabear would just cut the back of our bags off. We would duct tape cardboard boxes inside and just vinyl wrap the outside. It was pretty bad, but Seabear's a baller now. He has fiberglass bags. They look cool, but I ain't trying to spend that money today. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna go ahead and do another line here on the corners. These really don't have to be measured or perfect. You can kind of just see where the bag rolls. You can cut it more here on the outer side so you have more roll to fold over the outside. When you fold them, sometimes it just looks like it's a lot of overlapping. I would say just to cut it right on the corner, as close to the corner as you can. You're just gonna cut a triangle all the way down here, and then another line here. So we'll go ahead and do that now. So we got all of our cut lines now. We're gonna be cutting on these solid lines like I was saying before. What I like to do is drill, and then I have a little saw that I'll show you guys that I use. You can do this with a cutoff wheel, the same. You can get in there with like a hand saw and do, because when you use a cutoff wheel, sometimes it just kind of like cuts the plastic and like welds it back together. It kind of defeats the purpose of it. It happens to me every time. I've seen people do it with cutoff wheels just fine. I might just be retarded. But yeah, you're gonna drill this part out. This part with the X on it is gonna be removed. So we're gonna cut here, we're gonna cut here. We're gonna cut on this line right here, straight across the bottom. We're gonna cut this line here, that line, and that line. Same as the other side. We are not going to cut this. Do not cut on this line, because that's our part we're folding down. There's another line across the bottom. We're gonna cut that. So this big pizza slice portion should fall right out. Then we'll just have cut off bag with a big flap hanging off the back. Then I'll show you what to do after that. Guys, holes are drilled. You'll see why I drill these holes in just a second. This is the tool I use to cut the plastic. It's a little Harbor Freight special. It's like 25 bucks. It's made for cutting plastic. Reciprocating saw. I think the name there is like plastic or interior saw. Yeah. But you see this tiny blade here. We're gonna be sticking that in these big holes to be drilled. And then cutting down to the next hole. Cut from this hole to that hole. Also, drilling these out, making this round where it folds, makes them fold a little bit nicer than just being cut at a perfect straight edge. They're a lot more prone to crack. If you're just cutting it straight and folding it there, this gives it a rounder point for it to bend. I was saying, this little pizza slice is gonna fall right out. After we cut everything, it's not gonna, you have to cut it off the bike. Don't try to cut it on the bike, you're gonna cut your bag rails. But if you come over closer to here, get some light. I'm gonna bring the camera over here. You can see we are cut shorter than the bag rails. Can you see that? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Cut shorter than the bag rails. This piece is gonna fold down. We're gonna slowly heat this up. You should probably use a heat gun. I'm not. I'm gonna have to use a torch because I didn't feel like spending $20 extra at Harbor Freight or wherever to get a heat gun. So we're gonna use a torch, try to keep it far away from the plastic so we're not messing up the paint. Take your time, go slow. I have to probably trim this shorter at some point, but we won't know how much shorter until we get it folded down. We're also gonna have to cut out a little notch, like a little half moon, so it sits over the bag rail, tucks nice and flush against the bag. Before we do that, I'm just gonna go in with a file, kind of make sure these edges are nice and smooth before we start folding everything in. All right, guys, this is our finished product. We just have zip ties holding it right now. We gotta go get some brackets from the hardware store and we'll throw some actual bolts in there, but that's it. We got a little bit of a gap. Like I was saying, it makes a little bit of a difference if you leave some of that rolled edge on there. We'll tighten that up once we have the brackets and we'll smooth it out with a file. But you might have a little bit of a gap, but it looks a hell of a lot better than what we used to do with cardboard boxes. But that's where we notch the back out to so the bag rail fits through.